At ease, officers, and welcome back to the Imperial Academy. Grand Admiral Thrawn was the finest war tactician that ever graced the ranks of the Empire. In both legends and canon, his presence indicated a certain defeat in almost every scenario thinkable against his enemies. In the Heir to the Empire Legend series, his dealings against the New Republic almost brought them to their knees after only having been around for around 4 years. In canon, it took the Force itself to intercept in order to get Thrawn out of the picture before the beginning of the Galactic Civil War. Thrawn's absence during the time of the rebellion is definitely felt, as the Empire suffers multiple defeats and had a very difficult time nailing down the Rebel Alliance during the entirety of the war. There were many shortcomings and problematic decisions made by the Imperial High Command that all could have been avoided had Thrawn been there. Furthermore, we would go as far as to say that the Alliance would have stood absolutely zero chance at all had Thrawn been involved in the Civil War. I myself even highly doubt that Darth Vader would have had to be as involved as he was if Thrawn was there to take care of the rebels. Our top researchers have uncovered some unique data files that give us a peek into Thrawn's strategies, and we have acquired a few notes on how the esteemed Grand Admiral would have dealt with the rebels. In this video, we will be talking about such strategies, and proving that it might have been unlikely that the rebellion ever made it as far as destroying the Death Star and Zero ABY, had Thrawn been around. Before we begin though, we have noticed that a few ensigns have not yet enrolled into our data briefing program, so if you like what we do here on the channel and want to continue getting updates on all of our videos, be sure to blast that subscribe button. Now, be sure to inspect your uniforms, because we are now commencing. When the Mon Calamari joined the Rebel Alliance, they brought with them a fleet of retrofitted transport freighters to act as battle cruisers. This gave the Alliance a distinct edge, as they were then able to act as a formal military now that they had a proper navy. Admiral Ackbar was the leader of said navy and worked closely with Mon Mothma and the rest of the Alliance leaders to deal fatal blows against the Empire in a quick hit-and-run raid, which is a process that they then continued. One of the few times the Rebel Alliance entered a full head-to-head naval confrontation with the Empire was at the Battle of Endor, when the Mon Calamari cruisers engaged the Imperial fleet at the second Death Star. Other than this though, it was a very rare occurrence that the Alliance ever engaged the Imperial fleet unless they knew of certain victory. There were only so many of these Mon Calamari cruisers, and they couldn't risk losing hardly one of them. Of course, we do know of the fact that the rebels also managed to find at least a couple of old separatist dreadnoughts that they managed to get staffed. The primary source of their navy though was from Admiral Ackbar. This is why we don't see a lot of traditional naval warfare in the Galactic Civil War like we do during the Clone Wars. The reason we bring this up is because we believe that this would have been the exact thing that Grand Admiral Thrawn would have exploited. In almost every other naval engagement, Thrawn immediately had the upper hand due to how he would analyze his enemy and pick out their tactics and weaknesses almost on the spot. In some cases, he would be able to tell simply by the formation that they had their ships in. He did this by studying the specific art of the culture that he was fighting against. Thrawn had a distinct interest in art, and among all of his other skills, he was particularly adept at learning almost everything he needed to know about a people group just by their culture's art pieces. By doing this, Thrawn managed to pinpoint their kinds of strategies and any shortcomings by analyzing the mind of the culture's artists, as then he would know the minds of their warriors. As we've learned, Imperial intelligence was fully aware that the Mon Calamari were responsible for providing the rebellion ships. So Thrawn would very likely begin at once to study the art of the Mon Calamari people, as well as some data logs of previous engagements with Admiral Ackbar himself. By doing this, Thrawn would definitely figure out the exact weaknesses that plagued most of Ackbar's strategies. For one, he would know that Ackbar was itching for a good head-to-head fight in which he would be able to decimate some Imperials. However, Ackbar has to play it safe and use evasive tactics to stay ahead of the Empire so that they would not lose any of their valuable ships. Thrawn would possibly play into this exact thing, and either bait Ackbar or trap them in a head-to-head engagement which he would most certainly lose. By forcing the Alliance fleet into a direct confrontation, Thrawn immediately snatches any and every advantage that they have. While Thrawn definitely has them in the cruiser category, what about the starfighter category? We plan on making a video talking about the Imperial Navy's greatest weakness, and the fact that it was their starfighter department because they insisted on cutting costs on both the TIE fighter as well as with their pilots. If Thrawn were allowed full control, this would not be a problem. For one, Thrawn would make sure to design the pilot training program himself, and be sure to hand-select pilots that had seen more action, since that was an advantage that the Rebels had over the Imperials. The X-Wing pilots just tended to last longer, so what they lacked in formal training, they made up for in experience while fighting with the rookie TIE pilots. Having none of this, Thrawn would make sure to take care of this problem as well as the issue with the TIE starfighters in general. Thrawn had once designed and submitted the perfect starfighter, the TIE Defender. The Defender literally countered all of the traditional problems of the TIE Fighter, as it had deflector shields and a hyperdrive, while still retaining the advantage of being fast and maneuverable. Darth Vader himself was actually impressed with the Defender prototypes, and they had his approval. The only problem was, it costed a lot more than the standard TIE Fighter did, so it was thrown by the wayside. The reason the TIE Defender matters so much is because of the next point we're about to make. Thrawn did actually have a plan in place that would have utterly destroyed the Rebels, and we know about it. Thrawn's ultimate strategy in crushing the rebellion was simply to use the Empire's superior resources to beat them at their very own game. The Rebels' greatest asset and their bread and butter was their ability to move around quickly. They had several bases that they could switch between on remote systems, as they could get up and move at a moment's notice, constantly evading the Empire at every single turn. This was the main problem that the Empire had in both A New Hope as well as The Empire Strikes Back. They had a hard time locating the Rebels' hidden bases. Second, anytime they would find it, the Rebels were 2 steps ahead and always managed to get away because they traveled extremely light. Our esteemed Grand Admiral would not have such issues because of his simple solution: create a small, elite Imperial strike team that can keep pace with the Rebels. We have seen time and time again that the Rebellion can't hold their ground for very long against a direct Imperial assault. The Battle of Hoth was less of a battle and more of a massacre in some regards. Thrawn knew the Rebellion's tactics well, and had suggested that an elite task force be formed to use the Empire's superior training, equipment, and resources to act as hunter-killers. This would have made the Galactic Civil War much more like a Terminator story. This elite squad would have extended into the Starfighter Corps as well, which is why we had brought up the TIE Defender. Regular TIE fighters could engage X-Wings in a dogfight just fine, but X-Wings had the advantage of a hyperdrive to make their attack and then quickly escape from the TIEs. However, the TIE Defender now also had a hyperdrive and could just follow them right on the heels of the Rebels. Back in the early days of the Rebellion, X-Wings were all only equipped with one set of proton torpedoes due to the lack of resources that they had, so whenever they spent their torpedoes, most pilots just went ahead and made the jump out to light speed. Mission accomplished. However, if the Empire were to follow them and re-engage the X-Wings after that they had spent all of their resources, it would be over. These things just go to show that Grand Admiral Thrawn, had he been around, would have won the war effortlessly on behalf of the Empire, and that the Imperial Navy especially wouldn't have stood a chance. The New Republic barely stood a chance even with all of their newfound resources. But my comrades, what do you think about our research? Do you believe in the near infallibility of Thrawn? Let us know your notes in the comments down below. And until next time, may the Force be with you, and you are all dismissed.